Well, we have two questions for our debate, which I think we can sum up maybe our discussion of today. But just to ask a couple of questions for Volker, because he just finished his presentation, is that you often highlighted cooperation element in development of these policies. And also Anton discussed how it is important to discuss with construction sector how to align these goals and visions. And for me, a question came is like, how does Germany and the federal level, let's say, look at that cooperation with construction sector, and how much is that left to regional, as you said, regional sort of plans and developments and local authorities to deal with those stakeholders, let's say?
Could you please again, because I couldn't hear you. Yes, there was an interruption.
Sometimes I don't know if other people, but I do get interruptions from you, Volker. I don't know if that's the case for others. So maybe there's a problem on your side, actually. But just to repeat the question, how much do you cooperate with construction sector stakeholders, specifically on like federal level, or how much do you leave that up to, let's say, regional level, local level actors to deal with these stakeholders in such policy making processes like the one you just mentioned?
Actually, we are not involved in the implementation of this target. This is actually task of the respective governments and planning authorities and local planning offices. We are just monitoring, or kind of monitoring the development also on a regional level. But cooperation in this respect actually is asked between different departments of planning. For example, in the city, there is the target caused a lot of discussions between the planning department and the nature protection department, for example. It also implemented a lot of discussions between cities, city boards or planning boards with the outside sitting to think or in a regional perspective and not in a city and surrounding perspective. I think this is the main success of this target, actually, that people start talking about the impact of their planning and how we could join our planning and how do we actually compensate developments from one and on the other. This is actually the success of the target.
Perfect, thank you. Well, coming back to Anton and his presentation on the law of infrastructure, I got a bit like triggered of what Erblin said in his discussion on the spin-off and saying that some interventions have side effects. And I think that's a really interesting point on exactly on this law of infrastructure because it's so new. So could you please comment a bit more on what side effects you could see? And basically what we observe also from the Ministry of Environment, that in the beginning of the implementation of this law, we saw that lots of municipalities actually were quite reluctant to actually apply the tariff, actually just start using the law. What do you think actually caused that, and why you think that happened, and how you think that changed over time?
Cool, that's a very wide question. Well, I will start with the very beginning. So I think the main thing was that it's a very new regulation, and nobody was really prepared for that. And even us, it took us a very long time to really understand on a very basic level, we all understand why we need this law, and that's good that we can regulate especially the development, the set of tariffs, and especially the contracts between the developers and the city in terms of new infrastructure development. But I think the main challenge was first of all that probably it's not the ideal law, and there is still a lot of details that has to be adjusted, and I think those some of the details, the devil is in the details, and some of the details maybe was why some of the smaller municipalities or even us didn't understand how do we need to implement it and how do we do that. And now when we lived 1 year with the law, now it's more understandable, and we know which parts of the law should be, in our opinion, changed, and we are talking about that a lot. And but the thing is that in our case, in Lithuania case, the municipalities are really independent from each other, and this law could have been a very good tool in terms of, for instance, urban sprawl management. But in the end of the day, every municipality probably wants to collect some money, and then in the largest cities, for instance, Vilnius is the largest city of Lithuania, and then the regional municipalities also are willing to get more people living there and give better better conditions and smaller fees for building and so on. Even though that they know that infrastructure will cost, but people are still willing to live in places where there is zero infrastructure, and we have to deal with that, and that's a very another part. It's not a regulational part. So so that's kind of this this working together with the municipalities, and how do we find the national policy tools, how do we tackle these kind of problems? Because in our case, we lived 7 or 8 months that we were the only municipality who had the tariffs in the region of Vilnius, and now now we have a very different different result, but finishing the idea that where could this backfire, we still don't know. It still has been 1 year, and still there is a lot of things to rethink and to count and to know exactly what are the consequences. But we see now that we have to kind of try, and that's a very political thing as well, to increase the prices, especially in the areas we don't want to be developed, or which are not we don't want to be developed, but which are very, very expensive to be developed. To build a road, to build pipes, to build a school in a very low density areas is so expensive. So people who are willing to live there, they have to know that they have to pay. But that's a very, very, well, we have to balance that as well on the political level, both and on the, well, we as people who do administrative decisions, for us it's kind of, we see the numbers. It has to be 300 euros per square meter, but we know that we can't set these kind of prices. So that's at some point a sad part as well. So
thank you, Anton, for explicit answer. And I see that David also wanted to participate. He raised a hand, but also I want to mention that in this discussion we have joining also David, who presented the super project, as well as Giancarlo Cotella from Polito University in Italy, right? Torino, Polito de Torino, right? That's the, as well as Erblin Berisha, who also presented the super spin-off project for Lithuania. So David, I don't know if you raised a hand. You don't have question anymore, or you'd like to come back to this, or?
Actually, Anton started to answer the question already by the end, but I guess I can raise it again because it's a general point, and it's about when you see that you have a new intervention and everyone agrees with it, and that was also in the Dutch case study. super, that we had something similar to the 30 hectare target. It was a general idea. Everyone was behind it, but when it got implemented, that's when some pain was felt. And the question is, well, how do you make this effective? And on one side, you can just make it more rigid and make it more expensive to develop in areas which you don't want to have developed, and maybe even creating a kind of ATS system, which I guess Germany had experimented with, where you can trade rights, or you can do I guess what's also working in Germany is take advantage of local innovation. How can we let this inspire us to different ways, and then have a discussion about this, which is good for the long term. But if, let's say, the sprawl or the urbanization is so acute and happening so rapidly, maybe you don't want to go down that path, because this is irrevocable. You usually will never get something back if it's urbanized. So kind of looking at both of your experiences, how do you juggle between this? The one hand is to really try to implement this in a, let's say, a hard, more effective regulatory way, using meaningful numbers, or on the other hand, sit back and hope that innovation will take its course.